What is going on, everybody? It's Dr. Chris Featherstone here for yet another episode of Unscripted. Listen, it's Tuesday nights. You know what that means. I have some of the biggest, the baddest, the best wrestlers of today and yesteryear. And guess what? Tonight is no different. Why is tonight no different? Because I have a spanky of a guy that's going to come on the show tonight. Listen, interesting thing about this guy, man. So, former TNA X Division champion, two-time WWE World Tag Team Champion, former Cruiserweight Champion. That's cool. Big list of accomplishments in his long story career as a professional wrestler. But I'm going to give this guy another accolade that is not in the books, but it's in my books. And that is interim WWE champion, ladies and gentlemen. You can't say nothing about it. He is the Brian Kendrick. How are you tonight, my man?
Hi, Dr. Chris. Thanks for having me.
Man, it's great to have you on the show.
As far as that interim champion, what I consider it is I'm a former current WWE champion.
You were the
I'm not a former champion. Yeah.
You were the longest in that match. Yes, you were.
I was the longest current champion.
Yes, you are.
So it's really nothing, but it's neat.
It is neat, man. It was neat. I believe you told Triple H that you were the longest current WWE champion back in was it Unforgiven 2008?
That sounds about right. About right.
You won a battle royal in SmackDown, I believe, right before to be in the Unforgiven Scrambler. I don't think they've ever had a championship scrambler ever again after that. The first and only.
I think you're right. That's a shame because as far as I know, like it got MVP Shelton Benjamin and myself in the mix in that match with Triple H and Jeff Hardy, who's already selling massive amounts of T-shirts and a big star, but we gotta be in the mix for a night. So it was a cool way to give guys a rub, even just for a little bit. It's exciting.
That's right. And MVP was never a current champion. Shelton Benjamin was never current champion. But this guy right here, he was the longest reigning current WWE champion.
Yeah,
take that away from
him. Put that on my tombstone.
That's right, man. Man, well, before we get into these questions, man, you still are a man of many projects. I know you got some appearances coming along, so let the listeners know you got a wrestling school. You got a lot of things going on in the pro wrestling business.
Yeah. Boy, I got a sign up at the Quakertown Farmers Market and wrestling up in there again for Alpha Junior. I do that, every few months, and it's a blast. And I train kids on Thursdays and on Tuesdays. I double booked myself this week. Actually, triple booked. I had to leave the middle of a draft to do this, and I had to rearrange practice for tonight.
Thank you
But
for
then,
that.
yeah, absolutely. I got Justin Jefferson, so I'm happy. The rest is whatever.
Nice.
And then I guess the the thing that brings me the most joy is Wrestling Pro Wrestling, which is a wrestling project that my friends and I do. That's comedy based that my students wrestle for. So that's what I do. As much wrestling stuff as I can.
Fantastic. Where can people find you on social media? We'll plug you at the end too, but I want to plug you before too. Where can people find your endeavors on social media?
I'm gonna say it's Mr. Brian Kendrick,
Nice.
at Mr. Brian Kendrick.
Sounds good. All right, ready to dive into these questions.
Let's do it.
All right. Guillermo's asking, how did the Brian Kendrick come to an end, come to be, and in some way that gimmick allowed to become WWE champion, even if the reign doesn't count? Well, it doesn't count to Guillermo, but it counts to me.
Well, we'll never be in the record books. I know what he means.
Yes, indeed.
So I mean, it's a long story, but essentially it came out of frustration and me, demanding a push. I was really angry and full of testosterone, and so through all that, Vince sent me down, go pick up a heater, which was Ezekiel Jackson. Cut a promo for Vince that was written for me. He didn't like it. He said, "What do you got?" I gave him a promo. He said, "That's better." He says, "But you're the Brian Kendrick." So that was all Vince. Vince came up with the Brian Kendrick, and I think without the Brian Kendrick and the leather jacket that my wife made, I'm just a skinny guy slinking around dancing and looking foolish, and no one buys it. But the in the jacket really helped.
I'm a sucker for good theme songs too. The Man with the Plan theme song was pretty cool too. And you would come out and you would have your little walk and stuff like that. It was like Brian Pillman meets like Leonardo DiCaprio meets like there's another actor that I'm missing too that's
Mm.
a missing link that was there too. It was another one too, but it had that type of feel to it that was like really really cool, man. It's a really cool type of character. The jacket really, really helped you too. I think that
Really, really helped. It was a long time ago when I was young. Raven said, "Kid,
ah,
get a jacket," and I guess that's just the line he tells everybody. But he's right. Otherwise you're just the guy in the ring. I'm just Brian Kendrick, a skinny kid,
mhm.
with a jacket, with a name. It makes a big difference.
So this was fresh off the London split, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So was did you catch any heat with London as there was a lot of friction going on there? And how was it to separate yourself from that? Was it difficult or was it a little easier to get to separate yourself from the tag team?
The thing with the tag teams, and I don't know how it is today. I don't watch modern wrestling, not because I don't like wrestling. It's just I'm not interested in storylines. I still love wrestling and all things about it, but tag team wrestling just isn't. It only goes so far. It's an act. It's a great act, and it makes for exciting wrestling. But at that time, the act was only going to be, 1 to 2 segments on a show, and it's always going to be where it needs to be. And so, we found this out directly, and so it was time for us to split. And but for a year and a half, we got to do some really cool stuff together.
And I was a huge fan of y'all's theme song too, actually. You and Brian, you called London, man. It was really cool. You would come out with the mask and do the little, kind of tilt. I mean, was it Ashley Massaro y'all were with as a
It
man?
was. It
Yeah,
sure was. Yeah, Ashley Massaro was with us for
yeah, that was pretty cool. Yeah. Let's see. What was that? Oh,
fun.
you
I'm
froze.
sorry.
Oh, okay. You froze a little bit, but it's cool. Let's see. Rorito's asking, who are your top 5 cruiserweights of all time, and what did you enjoy the most about your first time in WWE?
So, top 5 of all time, it can be Rey Mysterio, Tiger Mask, Dynamite Kid,
Ooh,
Eddie Guerrero, and Chris Jericho.
nice.
Um, and but it was also I'm 43, so the when Nitro was on, I was in high school. It was perfect time. So those guys really, and then the tape trading from there. And then the second half. What I enjoy the most about my first time in WWE. Um, I I got to meet all the wrestlers. So when I was first there, I got to meet like all the guys on TV,
Mhm.
and I was there by myself. I didn't, I didn't know anybody, and it was just at the end of this was, as Cena was starting to become, something. The ruthless aggression era. So
Mhm.
um, I gotta meet everybody, and wow, and I'm just a boy, and so that was exciting. Looking back on it, at the time I didn't really appreciate it, but that would be the highlight. And I'm sorry, I pressed the button because my phone warned me it's overheating. So just in case I
Oh,
disappear, just in case I
gotcha,
disappear.
gotcha. King of Hueco Mundo is asking what does Brian think of the controversy in AEW? Is it at work? The CM Punk stuff with the EVPs, I suppose he's talking about.
So okay, so what I know is a wrestling highlight. So I mean, like the headline. So
Mhm.
I'll check the same. I don't know if it's good, bad, or any worse than any of the other ones, but it's the first one that I check. It's just the only one. WrestlingInc.com.
Mhm.
And did anybody die today? Anything? And then if anything interests me, I'll click on it, but I don't like when it comes to the gossipy stuff like that. I don't know. I saw that CM Punk's name is mentioned and stuff, but I didn't click the article. And do I know if it's a work or not? I don't. I don't know what kind of program AEW runs. I mean, I don't know if they're a program that blurs the lines or not. So, if they're a company that blurs the lines, then I don't know. It sounds like there's a chance because we're talking about it. So that's interesting. But I
Yeah.
really I don't keep up with modern wrestling. I apologize.
No worries. Speaking of AEW, Jeff is asking, totally enjoyed your time in WWE. You were so much fun to watch. I thought 205 Live was all you. Any chance we'll see you in AEW?
I don't know, Jeff. I got fired my first day of work at AEW, so I don't know. I don't
How
know.
so? What happened there?
Yeah, so an old video surfaced of it was Brian Kendrick's conspiracies, and I talked about every sort of conspiracy and list any sort of conspiracy. The day I was set to debut in my gear, article comes out. Somebody put out the video, and that was it. They washed their hands of me. Well, it took a couple of months, but I was asked to leave, and so yeah, it's all who knows? Who knows? So I don't imagine anytime soon.
Hmm. Did Tony have any plans for you, or were you just like another name that he brought in among many names to just be there? Like, did
I
he have any plans for you at all?
I Look, I don't know Tony enough to know. I meet a lot of people who say things, and so they could say this, that, and the other, but I don't know Tony enough to whether or not he's going to follow through.
Hmm.
But yeah, there was I wasn't coming in for a one off. There was supposed to be something, and that was the idea, and it would have been nice, but who knows? Here we are. So I don't know. I don't know if we really would have done something, but I was under a contract. Yeah, two in
Cool.
fact. Yeah.
Gotcha. Kelvin is asking, do you keep in touch with Paul London?
I don't. We fell out of touch over the years. Yeah.
Okay. Andrew is asking, do you have any 0-1 to Japan stories?
Uh, sure. I mean, yeah, that was one of my favorite times um, in wrestling in my life. I guess most of my life was wrestling. So uh, I think was reminiscing with Jason Legend, George, who was out in California recently. Um, Years ago, we had a day off in outside of Hiroshima, and all the gaijin, which just means non-Japanese, were all
Mhm.
huddled up in a hotel room with the day off, and we got water balloons, and we were throwing water balloons at strangers, and Otani had to get us out of trouble with security, and so eh, it was a special memory, but it was a lot of goofing around. It was a lot of goofing around with Steve Carino, C.W. Anderson, Sanjay Dutt, and Alex Shelley, and I said Jason Legend, and there's a lot of friends. Gallo, who I just ran into recently, and on and on. Anyways,
Nice, nice. AJ is asking, how did you learn about Ashley Mazzaro's passing? And did you talk to her before she passed?
I had talked to her once since we had not seen each other in years. It might have been a year or two before she passed. Um, I don't remember how I heard. Uh, I don't think I was called, but I think maybe somebody texted me,
Mhm.
but I don't remember. I don't remember what I was doing at the
Gotcha.
time.
Stories with your best moment with Shawn Michaels as your teacher.
Um, I guess the funniest would be, I was very intimidated by him. He was very serious, and I was very young, and uh, I worked very hard. I was the one guy who helped set up the ring with the ring crew. I would hand out flyers. So one time, a friend of mine, uh, another wrestler, said he was going to hand out the flyers, and he didn't. Uh, and so I got yelled at by Shawn before my match as my music was getting ready to go. And he's screaming at me about the flyers, only for Coach Rudy to tell him, like, you yelled at the wrong guy. You really should apologize. So his way of apologizing was smiling, patting me on the back, and telling me I had a good match. And that was the closest I got to an apology because, what's he going to do? Apologize to a pimply 19-year-old?
Well, ladies and
So
gentlemen, now he's a non-pimply, former current
43-year-old.
WWE champion, 43-year-old man. So Shawn Michaals, you owe this man an apology. 24 years later, ladies and gentlemen. So, and he's waiting, so
Yeah, sure.
don't make
Yeah.
it wait too long.
Oh man,
Kelvin is asking, how was it working with Brock Lesnar?
I loved it. I loved it. You know, if I had my pick, the David versus Goliath. That's what I was born to play. I'm a small guy. I like to sell. I love all aspects of wrestling, but playing a baby face against a monster, I really love. And as a guy in his early 20s, that's when it was at my best. Because I just looked like a kid. I was small.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was really really fun.
Speaking of that, didn't you beat Abyss for the cruiserweight for the X Division championship?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
It was one of those. Is Ultimate X the one that has
Yeah.
the crisscross?
Yep.
Okay. Uh, and man, I mean, good for them. I remember the first time they did one of those. My buddy Matt Bentley, who trained at Sean's school, was in it, and that belt just kept falling down with nobody touching it. But anyways, when Abyss and I did it, it stayed. It was great. And that sucker picked me up to choke slam me. When he went and picked me up, I gave me the boost I needed, and yay, real simple baby, David versus Goliath, and it's just
Mhm.
a matter of show and heart, and so I really like doing that, and I don't mind getting smacked around a little bit. So yeah, it's a really fun, yeah. I like those roles.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, that's one of those things that are never age. You know what I mean? Like it's just the David and Goliath.
Mm.
angle. You know, I mean, it's just there's so many different types of ways to be baby faces and heels nowadays. But you know, when it comes to angles, you know, people want to rally behind the underdog. You know, I mean, that's an ageless, you know, type of phenomenon. And so I think, you know, people like you definitely fit that role really well. And I think you did a really good job throughout your career, specifically in TNA against the Abyss. That was pretty cool to see that
Thank you very much.
unfold. Yeah, absolutely, man. Let's see. Elvis is asking, how did you get picked to sing? He's really, really sorry to Undertaker in the rap battle against Cena. I still remember.
Um, so it was a concoction of both Bruce Pritchard and Paul Heyman. And so like I was willing to do it. And so they Bruce said, okay, well, if you know, here's the words, go in. I want you to interrupt the meeting. And Vince has his meetings. I didn't know any better. Like I would be petrified. But so okay, you know, and I went and I didn't like, are you sure? Just go in. So I slide in and I'm really, really sorry. And I interrupt the meeting, and that's what convinced the boss to let me do it. I guess that was my audition, was interrupt the meeting with the song that they wrote for me. And yeah,
Nice.
it was a fun gig. Yeah.
Very nice. Speaking of petrified, how was it working with Vince McMahon? How was the aura of Vince McMahon?
I still get nervous around him. Still I'm not around him,
Mhm.
but even you know, this time last year, agenting, or when I was down a little bit before the Mania in Tampa doing some agenting, you know, what I'm afraid to say is stuff like this, Doc. I'm afraid to say, I'm sorry, boss, I couldn't hear you.
Mhm.
You know, I'm sorry, do you mind speaking up? It's, you know, we're way back here, and nobody does, but nobody says, hey, you know, it's just, and so now I feel like I've always just felt like a child. I never felt like a man enough to like go, hey, just, I'm sorry, I don't get what it is you're trying to say. I would
Mhm.
just pretend and fake my way through it, I guess. And I don't think I was alone, but I don't want to call
Yeah,
anybody else out, you know.
well, I was gonna say you don't have to say names, but
No,
was that a common type of feel around Vince? Like people didn't really like they felt so intimidated that they just kind of had to pretend that they heard him or pretend like just agree when they don't know what the heck he said, type of deal.
I had that impression. I had that impression that it wasn't just me. Because at first I'd look around like, is anybody can anybody hear him? But you know, I'd look and like maybe they can, or maybe they're faking it, and I'm just gonna start faking it too. I couldn't I couldn't do that very long. I had to tell Johnny, it's not for me. That's a hard job. That's a
Mhm.
hard job. Those agents have. It's pretty thankless. You have to relay what the boss and the writers want, and get the talent to, you know, the talent has to be satisfied too. And at the same time, like, a loss is a loss. Nobody's really winning or losing. You know, nobody's ever really won a match. But at the same time, if you lose in 2 minutes and that's the first time you wrestle in a while, it's also like, am I losing my job? So it is
Mhm.
a scary position for these wrestlers. And so to have to navigate that as a former wrestler, to 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 try to get everybody on the same page, and then the dynamic of being on the headset, calling the shots, hopefully getting the things across, and then getting time to talk to the boss to get it approved. It's really tough. Those guys have a hard job. They, you know, the few months I did it, they really helped me out, and it's yeah, it's tough.
Is there any match that you agented that sticks out the most during your tenure there?
Uh, so yeah, I mean, the my favorite one I did was at NXT. It was Walter versus Ilya, and at the same night,
Dragunov. You did
yeah.
that?
Yeah, so I did that one, and I did Dakota and Raquel the same night. But here's the thing, what makes, like, I know that those guys, what they do, they're awesome. So, you know, I hope that the guys who are 10 years younger than me are 10 years better than me. Like, they should be better than me.
Right.
So I know
Right.
they know their stuff, so you guys just tell me what angles you want to get, what kind of camera angles, this, that, and the other. They're kind enough to ask my thoughts on stuff, but I just get those shots, and same with Dakota and Raquel. They're really smart, clever wrestlers, and they put together really good matches.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
Very nice. I mean, heck, because
So,
of
and it was what I'm saying is that there's no credit for me to take in those. The wrestlers did it. That's what made it so fun. Sorry, I'm done.
I get it, but I'm not gonna let you off the handle like that, man. I think you get some credit for agenting, that type of match, especially Dragunov and Vata, or Gunta is what his name is now. But yeah, it takes kind of someone to steer the ship, when it and just kind of provide the tools, for the match, and it's up to the wrestlers to put the tools together and use the tools, what I mean, given to you from the match. So I mean, the agents are a lot of the brains behind the match that we see. So I appreciate your humility there, but I'm going to put you over there, man. So thank you for
I, I,
providing that to us.
I appreciate that, Doc, but really, what I will take credit for is uh, having faith in them.
Yeah.
That I trusted what they were going to do, and if anybody's going to get yelled at, it'll be me.
Hmm.
That's my job. So if I didn't like it, I would have corrected it, but I didn't. I didn't change nothing. So yeah, the most I could do is say that I believed in them. That was it. Yeah.
Nice, nice. There's a one here that was pretty cool about yeah, returning impact. Has that ever crossed your mind?
Oh, sure. Hey, I reached out to Jimmy Jacobs, once I got free of my contract from AEW. Would you guys have any interest? And he said he'll run up the flagpole, and came back and, hey, sorry, not at this time, buddy. Okay, appreciate you asking. So, I mean, not only was there interest, I reached out.
Hmm. Really interesting. I hope I hope they consider you, man. I mean, you've got a big resume, pretty loaded, pretty large resume full of accomplishments, man. So even from an agent perspective, even from backstage perspective, would you be interested in returning to NXT as an agent?
I mean, I at this point, I wouldn't say no to anything. Not right now.
Yeah,
Not say I would say yes to everything right now either, or yes to anything.
yeah.
But no, I don't want to put my foot in my mouth. But the the comic tragedy with all this AEW me getting fired thing. It's because I left WWE. I left NXT as a coach and producer to go and wrestle again, and that was it. I asked for my release so I could try to go wrestle, and I was getting ready to go wrestle, and boom.
Mm.
So this is it. So I'm out doing the indies again. I would love to wrestle. I would love to wrestle. My goal isn't to agent. My goal isn't to produce right now. But I'm in no position to say no to anything. If anything, I learned is uh, the irony in all these words, and they sure will come back to bite you. So I won't say yes or no to anything.
Fair enough. Um, Next is CW Dr. Chris. I like the Brian Kendrick gimmick with Ezekiel Jackson. And can you ask him why WWE released him back in 2009?
Yes, the official reason was that they had nothing for me. That was it. It was um, writers have nothing for you. Then I was told that I wasn't buying that answer. I was then told it's because I wasn't getting the job done, and I called baloney on that too.
Mhm.
But the truth was, I had an attitude problem. I had an attitude problem. This was a time when they had the pop policy. It was $1,000 fine, and they talked to me about it, and I didn't care. Take my $1,000. I didn't care. I was who cares? It's $1,000. I want to get high. That was my response.
Mm.
Well, if they want to push me, how can they push me? Meaning, if John Cena gave those types of answers, and I never had it in me uh, to do what he does, but if he gave those kind of answers, then he wouldn't be doing Snickers commercials. He
Mm.
wouldn't be doing Transformers. He wouldn't be doing any of these things. He's got to, you can't just be a selfish, jerk like that. And so that was it. I wasn't a good company person. I might have been a talented wrestler. I thought I was, but it wasn't worth the headache. There's plenty of talented wrestlers.
Any regrets on that vein, or no?
My regrets are, I wish I hadn't have said so many nasty things to people over the years. Those are my only regrets. Outside of that, like, any of these things have led to me opening my wrestling school years ago, to meet the students, to run the wrestling show I do now, and everything. The coin gets here the same way. So I'm fine with. I don't regret that. It does. I do wish I had not said things to hurt people out of frustration or anger. I wish I wouldn't have ever done that.
Fair enough. All right, last question for the show tonight. New timers asking, uh, Brian, maybe you and NWA. Billy is good and bringing talent with experience. Would you have an NWA bone in your body, perhaps?
Sure. I mean, yes, yeah. I mean, I would again. I'd be very interested in that as well. And I've never done any NWA before, so for that alone, it's intriguing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking to wrestle. I'm looking to wrestle. So yeah, absolutely.
Well, hey, this Sportskeeda has over 3 million followers. Billy
Really?
Corgan, the junior heavyweight championship division recently opened back up in NWA.
Mm.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. So it would be really interesting to see you there in the junior heavyweight division. And
I
hey, no,
appreciate that.
you've been current heavyweight champion before, man. You can be a
True.
heavyweight champion again, man. So let the listeners know again about your whereabouts, my man.
Yeah, on social media, I believe it's at Mr. Brian Kendrick. I'm pretty sure that's it. Check out Wrestling Pro Wrestling, or Wrestling PW is what it might be. Uh, and that's it. We're gonna be on G4 tomorrow. Some of us goofballs on Attack of the Show tomorrow night. So really
Nice.
excited about that. Yeah, if you're interested in seeing Pop Tart Boy and Giant Haystacks and King Desi in the group, check out Attack of the Show tomorrow, 4 to 6 Pacific.
Fantastic. Brian, it's been a pleasure coming on the show tonight. I really appreciate your time, man.
Thanks for the invite, Dr. Chris, and thanks for being so nice to me.
Oh, my pleasure, man. Have a good night.
Thanks, you too. Take care.
Bye.